Ugh. Halloween 5. I don't like that movie at all.
Me neither.
Oh, hey everybody. It's me and Carl again. Today,
Hello, everyone.
today we'll be doing an updated version of my Halloween 5 rewrite. Why, you may ask? I just didn't like my old version. It was just poorly done.
Yes.
Here, this will be a much better version. Here, we'll be covering Act 1A, which is the prologue. Act 1B will serve as establishing our characters. Acts 2A and Act 2B are the obvious ones. Act 3 will serve as the final battle. And Act 3B will serve as the epilogue.
Yes.
Okay, so let's begin, shall we? Okay, so we begin about where, after Halloween 4 leaves off, Mrs. Carruthers is going to the hospital because she was just attacked by Jamie, and Mr. Carruthers and Loomis are arguing, and then Sheriff Beaker would tell Loomis that he needs to take care of Jamie by sending her to Smith's Grove, and then Loomis is like, "You're right. This would be the best decision."
Yeah.
And essentially, Loomis decides to take Jamie with him. And then 2 officers would appear and tell Loomis that they tried to find Michael's body, but they couldn't find him. And Loomis is like, no one like Michael could have survived that.
Yeah.
And then, continue the story.
Meanwhile, we cut to Jamie in Smith's Grove, where she's being treated by the nurses and Dr. Loomis.
Meanwhile, Dr. Loomis is thinking of something. We then cut to the same scene with Michael in the river, but there's one thing we're going to change. The mask! It's terrible!
Yeah.
Well, how did its neck grow long? Did the rock stretch out, or did the water stretch it out? I don't know. That's beyond me.
And someone changed the mask to be like the one, to be like in 2018, and someone changed up the mask to be like it was in Kills.
Yeah.
Only that.
Essentially, it's like Halloween 4, but the Halloween 4 mask, but battle damaged.
Yeah.
And essentially, Michael comes to the old hermit's house, and why did this old hermit allow Michael to sleep in his house for a year?
We really don't know.
That's just beyond me. I mean, sure, he didn't know who Michael was, but could he have at least gotten somebody to help?
Yes.
That's just beyond me. Meanwhile, we see the old hermit and his wife. The old hermit and his wife actually happen to be Sheriff Brackett and his wife.
Yeah.
We get to see with Sheriff Brackett mourning his daughter.
Yes.
Meanwhile, Mrs. Brackett hears something. She then tells Sheriff, her husband, that she'll go check what's going on. And when she does, Michael gets up and kills Mrs. Brackett by drowning her to death.
Yes.
Sheriff Brackett could hear this, and then when he checks outside, he couldn't believe it. It's Michael, the man who killed his daughter and now his wife.
Yes.
Go on, continue the story.
Then Brackett tries to attack Michael. Brackett tries to attack Michael. But Michael kills him by smashing his head.
Similar to how it was in Halloween Kills.
Yes.
And then Brackett knows he'll now see his daughter and his wife in a better place in heaven.
Yes.
Michael then suggests that he'll stay in this house for a year.
Yeah.
And then we cut to the title card. Da 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 da. Okay, I'm changing the title here. Instead of Halloween 5: The Revenge of Michael Myers, because that made little to no sense, It's Halloween 5, Two Faces of Evil.
Yeah.
And then we cut into a year later. Loomis has been trying to find Michael for a year, but he's nowhere to be seen.
Yeah.
He then tries to have help from Gary Hunt, Sheriff Meeker, and Jamie, but Jamie has to stay because of what happened in Halloween 4.
Yeah.
And of course, this is where we get introduced to Billy in the story. He tries to help Jamie, but Jamie now has some antisocial behavior.
Yeah.
She's not acting the way she's supposed to. Meanwhile, she's being taken care of she's being met by Rachel and her father, and Rachel mentions that she now has a new boyfriend, who I can't mention yet.
Yes.
Meanwhile, after Loomis and Meeker decide to leave a house, we see someone watching in the background.
Yeah.
We can't tell who it is, though. We just can't. Meanwhile, later that night, when Jamie's asleep, a huge sound erupts.
Yeah.
Jamie couldn't tell what's going on. When she opens the door, it's Michael, still alive.
Yeah.
Michael then reaches his hand out to Jamie and is like, come with me. But he wouldn't say that because I don't think anyone here would want to see him talk.
Yeah.
So essentially, they leave Smith's Grove. But before they could leave, they attack some guards.
Yes.
None of the other children are hearing this because they're asleep.
Yeah.
Michael then and Jamie then leave. And then we see the Man in Black again, watching.
Yes.
And of course, we then cut to the day of Halloween in 1989.
Yeah.
Dr. Loomis was called that Jamie had left Smith's Grove, and he's now worried about her. Loomis is worried and tells Sheriff Meeker to get somebody to help.
Yeah.
But Sheriff Meeker is reluctant to help Loomis because he's blaming him for the death of his daughter in the last movie.
Yes.
But then Loomis is like, you're going to help me, whether you blame me or not.
Yeah.
Here, Loomis is toned down because he was just screaming at a little girl. I mean, I can see why he was going crazy, but again, still.
Yeah.
Loomis would then get into his car and we get a little, and then we get to meet Mr. Carruthers and Rachel.
Yeah.
Loomis and Mr. Carruthers have an argument, and Rachel isn't watching because her father hasn't been normal since what happened in Halloween 4.
Yeah.
And then Mr. Carruthers was then told to calm down.
Yes.
And he calms down. And then they decide to leave. Meanwhile, we get an introduction to this rewrite subplot. The love triangle between Tommy, Lindsay, and Rachel.
Yeah.
Because Tommy's just waiting for Rachel. He's like, Rachel, Lindsay, where are you? Here he's still played by Paul Rudd. And then we get to see a car pulling up. Initially, he thinks this is either Rachel or Lindsay, but nope. That's Lonnie and his girlfriend and his best friend. And yes, his girlfriend's Tina. And essentially, Tina is Tommy's ex. And there's a scene where she gives out the finger at Tommy's like, whoa, what was that for, Tina?
Yeah.
And essentially, Tina did this because he dumped her because he didn't like how he was being handled in a relationship with her. So, yeah, that's why they broke up.
Yeah.
And then Lonnie and the gang decide to leave. Continue the story.
I want to be while we cut to Luna as we share Beaker still looking for Michael.
They try to find Michael, but however, they find this Michael to be Tommy, who only wanted to give them a good scare.
Yeah.
And of course, Lindsay isn't really too impressed. We then cut to inside the house with Michael and Jamie.
Yeah.
Essentially, Jamie doesn't know how to attack people the way Michael does, so Michael's trying to help.
Yeah.
And essentially, Jamie sees something that Michael's hiding, and that is the Myers family tree.
Yeah.
And of course, she's been curious as to who the father, who is her dad. And this is where we get to see who her dad is. It's Jimmy from Halloween 2.
Yes.
Jamie couldn't believe it. Her mom knew who her dad was since the events of 1978.
Yeah.
Michael was like, what do you think you're doing, essentially? And Jamie's like, nothing. But Michael's like, you're looking at our family tree, aren't you?
Yeah. She says yeah.
And then Michael just hides the picture and then reveals what they're going to do.
Yes.
And this ends Act 2A. And now we move on to the second half of Act 2. Essentially, Loomis has now assembled our 5-man band for this rewrite.
Yeah.
Loomis tells that Michael and Jamie are going to attack soon enough, and they need to think of a way to stop them.
Yeah.
Essentially, Billy's there, but he's just reduced to being a minor character.
Yeah.
And then Loomis thinks of something. Something that he could do that he could not do to Michael.
Yeah.
And what is that, you may ask? A syringe. That could cure her of her anger.
Yeah.
Essentially, Lindsay isn't really too happy with Tommy being with Rachel as a Lily because we get a full flashback to sometime after 1978, like during 1979 or 1980, somewhere between then. Essentially, Tommy just didn't like being with Rachel, so he decided to be like, you know what, I don't want to be with you anymore. I'm done. Tommy was then alone, and then that's when Rachel came up to him, and then Tommy began to develop a relationship, a crush on Rachel. Now, why did Rachel and Tommy break up sometime afterwards? That is the question we are trying to answer here.
Yeah.
The reason why was because sometime after they first met, Tommy stopped thinking about Rachel, essentially,
Yes.
and decided to move on with his life. But then he then remembered sometime earlier in 1989.
Yes.
We then cut to Halloween night of 1989. Essentially, Lonnie and Tina are going to the Myers house.
Yes.
Even although it's abandoned,
Yes.
they decide to go in because they don't care. And then we see Michael and Jamie looking.
Yes.
And then Lonnie's best friend checks to see what was going on, but he doesn't see anyone. Or does he? Because somebody's behind him. And then continue.
Then he gets attacked by Michael and Jamie.
He tries calling out for help, but nobody's listening.
Yes.
Essentially, after a while, Lonnie and Tina just get bored, and Lonnie tries to go downstairs because Tina's either hungry or thirsty. When Lonnie goes downstairs to find some food, there isn't any because again, this house is abandoned.
Yeah.
So he decides to go to his truck to get to get a couple of drinks, and when he does, Michael shows up when he enters the house.
Yeah.
And essentially Lonnie is killed.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, Tina becomes worried about Lonnie, and then the door opens.
Yeah.
Tina tries to see what was going on. She thought it was just the wind, but then, when she closes the door, someone is next to the door. We can't see who it is.
Yeah.
When she opens up the window, she sees a dead body outside, and she's horrified to see that it's Tommy, Lonnie's best friend.
Yeah.
She then screams and tries to make a run for it, but then she's stopped by Michael. And Jamie also appears too, and then Michael throws Tina out the window after stabbing her twice. And then Michael and Jamie think that they should stay in the house and wait till the gang arrive.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, with our Halloween 5 rewrite gang, Loomis is desperate to find Michael and Jamie. However, he can't find the Myers house anywhere.
Yeah.
Continue the story.
A little bit less than Meeker to help him find the house.
Meeker says that he thinks he knows where the house is.
Yeah.
And when they do, Loomis has memories of the last time, he's been at the Myers house.
Yeah.
The first memory was when we focused on Michael being transferred to Smith's Grove after killing Judith.
Yeah.
Now, the Myers house will look exactly the way it did in the first two movies, rather than being completely different.
Yeah.
We see a young Sheriff Brackett, as well as the sheriff at the time who wasn't Brackett, but instead somebody else before Brackett. His name will be Sheriff Tom. And of course, Loomis and Brackett will be de-aged here, or recasted with younger actors. And then we get the events of Halloween 1 and 2 playing. And then Sheriff Meeker would snap Loomis back into reality in that they found 2 dead bodies, those being Tina and Lonnie's best friend. Loomis then decides to go into the house and try calling out for Michael or Jamie, but the more he's calling out, the more they don't appear for some strange reason. That is when Jamie appears, and Loomis would try to tell Jamie out of her senses, but however, Jamie doesn't talk, and then we get a fight scene between the two. However, with the rest of the gang, Michael is outside, and essentially, they have a hard time fighting against Michael because Loomis is taking care of Jamie. Essentially, Loomis gets the upper hand and shoots Jamie in the leg with a tranquilizer dart because Loomis found many ways to shoot Jamie without killing her. And essentially, when Jamie's asleep, he uses the syringe and takes care of Jamie. And then we cut back to the rest of the gang. And they're having a pretty tough time stopping Michael. And of course, sadly, Lindsay dies during all of this. She gets it. She basically is used as a shield for Michael, and Meeker shoots her 5 times. And Tommy's like, no, essentially. And then Loomis checks to see what was going on, and then continue the story.
And about after Lindsay gets shot, Michael, Loomis then tries to pummel Michael.
But Loomis is getting weaker due to his age. However, Tommy and Rachel decide to help Loomis, and Rachel just kicks Michael's butt. And essentially, Michael's mask comes off during all of this, and we see Michael's beaten up face. Here it will look all burnt. Which, why was his face normal in Halloween 5 when he was literally on fire in Halloween 2? This just makes no sense. Also, Michael barely has any hair due to the fact that he was literally caught on fire in Halloween 2. Jamie sees all of this and sees Michael's face for the first time, and that same scene from Halloween 5 where Michael took off his mask is about relatively the same, except Michael's mask is already off, and we don't get that scene where Michael cries, because that was just bad. It was lazy writing as well. The police the rest of the police then come, as well as the ambulance to take Lonnie, Tina, Lindsay, and Lonnie's best friend's bodies. And essentially, Michael's put into a police cruiser, and then as the police cruiser is leaving, the cruiser driver then is killed by the person next to him. And then a cruiser stops and crashes into a tree. Continue.
a lot of clashes organized by the Man in Black himself.
As he breaks Michael out, much like in the original movie. And instead of the deaths of the many cops, they just leave.
Yeah.
And then Loomis gets a call from Sheriff Meeker that Michael has escaped, and then Loomis is like, he will never die.
Yeah.
Something bad will happen one day.
Yes.
And that's where the Halloween 5 rewrite ends.
Yes.
Now, this again will lead to the Halloween 6 rewrite, which I will be calling The Legend of Michael Myers.
Yeah.
Because we're just gonna get rid of the whole Curse of Thorn thing and the Halloween 6 rewrite.
Yeah.
And we're just focusing on the Legend of Michael Myers, and then a What If Halloween video that I am calling What If Halloween H2O is a sequel to Halloween 6.
Yeah.
Stay tuned for that in the future. So long.
So stay tuned for the next video.
Anyways, what do you want to see in the Halloween 6 rewrite? Anyways, leave your comments down below. Anyways, bye.
Bye.